You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
And the Pittsburgh Steelers become the first franchise in history to win 6 Super Bowls.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Touchdown! Kansas City! Damian Williams!
Forward, diving to the goal line! A touchdown! And a title for the Patriots!
What do you think having a 37-year-old?
Welcome everybody to the penultimate, I guess not necessarily penultimate episode of NFL Unhinged, but it is finally championship weekend, and we got plenty of topics to discuss today, and we have a very light panel. Kelsey and Zach were not able to join us for the recording today, but we still got myself, Jimmy Pilato, Niko, my co-host from the Far End of the Bench podcast, Jim, aka J-Dash from the J-Dash Show, and then we finally get the return of the regular season champion, DJ from the High Low Sports podcast. So, guys, it's been a long season so far, even though we didn't do all 16 games. We started in week 12. But this show has been, it's been going strong. So I'll start it off because we haven't been able to hear how he felt about his regular season championship. DJ, I'll start with you. How are you feeling coming off of that regular season championship? And what do you think about your playoff performance so far?
Well, it was truly an honor to wear the regular season crown, and I really wish it carried over to the playoffs since now I'm dragging up the rear, so maybe I shouldn't have busted my load so much in the regular season, so I had a little bit something left in the playoffs.
You should go see a doctor. I think they can talk to you about a prescription if you wanted some help with your stamina, DJ.
I might have to throw back a few pills to get going for this final playoff run.
There is still plenty of, it's everybody's race so far. We discussed it for the playoff pick'em. We're going based off a point system. Divisional and wild card rounds were both worth 1 point. This weekend's games, even though there's only 2 of them, are worth 5 points. So there's plenty of chance for everybody to make it up. And I'll go to my co-host, who's bringing up the rear so far, but he, like I said, still has a chance. Niko has 5 points. DJ has 6. So Niko, how are you feeling going into championship weekend?
I mean, I've been picking with my heart instead of I haven't been picking with my heart. I've been picking with my mind, and it's really screwed me over. I should have figured that Tom Brady was going to win. I should have figured that the Buffalo Bills were going to steamroll the Ravens. I was just thinking too much into it. I mean, I rooted for the Bills to win, and they won. But my dumbass picked the Ravens. Hopefully, I can make up some ground here. Because I feel like because I did pick this, my Super Bowl matchup is still in play, so hopefully it can. I mean, from our show way back when we picked the playoff picture whole standing. So my Super Bowl is still there. I'll probably pick the same. I don't know yet. I'll decide when that time comes, but it's hopefully I can make up some ground.
There you go. There's a good teaser to stick around through the rest of the show. Niko might have a surprise during the pick'em for this week. Jim, you are actually tied in first with Zach of the Gridiron Gallery podcast. Both of you guys have 8, but you had a very impressive divisional round. So here, I'll give you a few seconds here to gloat, because if I give you a few minutes, being from Boston, you'll take all the time that I give you. I'll give you a few seconds to gloat on last weekend. How are you feeling moving into championship round?
Well, first off, we got to say that we've made it to championship week in a pandemic season. And besides the Cleveland Browns getting screwed out of a touchdown in the first half, it was a good weekend. And I'm not going to really gloat about Brady making it to another conference championship game, which is, the existence of life. You're born, Brady makes the playoffs, you die. That's the symbolism of life. So, yeah, I'm good. I'm happy.
Yeah, there he goes. For everybody vomiting in your car or wherever you're listening to this week's episode, I apologize, but at least he's not throwing up the Brady image for you guys when you're watching it on YouTube. Real quick, we got to mention.
Oh, I got some images to throw up, but not Brady today.
Not Brady, hopefully, because I'm sure that we lost a ton of people on the last one. But we got to mention this show is a Unhinged Sports Network exclusive. You can find it every Sunday during the season, 10 a.m. Eastern. It also gets replayed Mondays and then also on demand on the Far End of the Bench YouTube channel. And we are brought to you by our great partners at Fubo TV and Fanatics. So depending on who wins the Super Bowl, you guys might have to go use our link, use the link in all of our bios for Fanatics. Go buy yourself some Super Bowl gear. And if you don't want to deal with cable or you aren't able to watch the Super Bowl, go and start a free trial of Fubo TV, because I'm sure once you start that and cut the cable cord, it's not going to go anywhere. But let's go ahead and get into the meat of this episode, and we'll start by recapping the divisional round games. Jim mentioned it. The Browns game was a little bit iffy at points, depending on who you're rooting for. I'm sure you're either really happy or really disappointed in it. But we'll go in the order in which they happened, if I can learn how to speak. So starting with that's the Packer game. Niko and I, we broadcasted it on Colorcast. It was pretty competitive, doesn't really get shown by the score. But we had a lot of matchups that we were intrigued by going into it, and some of those lived up to the hype, some of them didn't. Niko, what was the one matchup that you were most excited to see, and was it as good as you were expecting, or did it kind of not live up to the hype?
Well, I think Packers Rams, that game was a lot of fun. I think it was a test of wills, because I think we saw two of the best players in the NFL right there on the same field together. Aaron Donald, obviously, with the injury he suffered, so he wasn't 100%. But Aaron Rodgers is playing on a different level. I said this on our show. He's having fun, which is a very, very scary problem for everyone in the league. If you're one of those Final Four teams and Aaron Rodgers is enjoying playing football, boy, should you be worried? You should be big time worried. When it came to the other games, the Bills Ravens game kind of stood out to me. Or we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. Yeah. But with the Packers game, everyone was focused on the Devonta Adams versus Jalen Ramsey matchup, and Jalen Ramsey, he didn't have a bad night, but Devonta Adams, it was more of a scheme by Matt LaFleur to get Devonta Adams into space and get him different options to move around that I really enjoyed watching, because we said in the broadcast, we saw two of the greatest, not greatest, I wouldn't say greatest because Jim will say otherwise, greatest 1 yard plays on the 1 yard line by an offensive team we've ever seen, whether it be on the 2-point conversion or the hook and ladder by the Rams, or that the motion play by Devonta Adams where he went across the field. Aaron Rodgers discovered it was man coverage, brought Devonta Adams all the way back and do a quick out route to Devonta and hit the touchdown. Two of the greatest plays on the 1 yard line we've ever seen, creative wise. So there was a lot of good things in this matchup. I think the Packers are going to need a lot more from Rashawn Gary and Zadarius Smith than what they had against the Rams to beat the Buccaneers. But they played very well, and their secondary. They showed a lot more than we expected. Everyone thought that's where they were weak, but they've definitely stepped up here in the playoffs. Like I said, the 1-2-3 punch at the running back position and Aaron Rodgers and Devonta Adams, it's very hard to stop this offense.
Yeah, they got weapons galore. Jim, I'm going to go to you next because Jalen Ramsey is a Seminole. You're a Florida State alum, and I know you love your football down in Tallahassee. Did you expect that matchup to go the way that it did? Because they were jawing pretty good back and forth. Devonta Adams pretty much called out Ramsey and said he wanted him to shadow him the whole game. When that matchup actually took place, what did you see that kind of put it in favor of Devonta Adams?
First off, I enjoyed Devonta Adams schooling Jalen Ramsey. The best thing about Jalen Ramsey, he's skilled. He's one of the best defensive backs in the NFL. But when he gets beat, he blames everyone else besides him. And him pantering on the sideline, then the defensive back coach is like, hey, look at this. And he realized that he messed up, not the safeties. Put a smile to my face and realize he's getting humble. He's not being a pansy crybaby what he was in Jacksonville and what he was in this junior year in Florida State. Yes, he's a great talent. He's the best. When he wants to be the lockdown corner that he wants to be, he can be it. But Aaron Rodgers, he's smiling. He's kicking ass. He's making plays. Homeboy is just loving football. And when Aaron Rodgers is loving football, you're not beating that team. I don't care who he's playing against. He could be playing up against the 2008 New England Patriots, and he'll torch him because he's having fun. And the Rams, I know I've had some moments with the Rams this year. Like, are they serious? Is Jared Goff serious? Jared Goff actually played pretty well to me for a person that was supposedly not supposed to be holding on to a football. But having seen the demise of LA and their ridiculous amount of cap space they do not have, this offseason is going to be very questionable for them. They need to go find, I have to say, they may have to go find a legit quarterback to be a contender. Jared Goff, yes, did impress. It's just when he's up against the big guys, he falls short. Yes, he is suffering from an injury, but one thing you admit, the number one defense in the NFL got torched. And people say defense wins championships. In recent years, offense has been winning championships, not defense. But it was a good playoff game. I was impressed about the attendance. For 20-some thousand people in that stadium, that was pretty cool. And they were loud. That literally sounded like a Lambeau postseason game, just minus the 80,000 that's in the attendance. But it was a good game, and Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and don't bet against them this year.
Yeah, I think the comparison to Jay Cutler is probably over now with what we've seen so
Guy,
far.
bring back Jay Cutler on this damn show. Damn.
I mean, I'm just saying
the legacy continues.
We probably overused it at this point, and we might have pissed him off a bit. I'm sure that he listens to the show. Really,
he's back with his wife or ex-wife, so he's got that going for him. So obviously he's still back in the news.
And the Bears are still looking for a quarterback. Just saying.
All right, DJ. I kind of wanted to talk about some of the unsung aspects going into that game, and really it comes down to the running game of the Green Bay Packers. Not only is it Aaron Jones, but AJ Dillon and then Jamal Williams both looked absolutely incredible. What do you think it was that had led to that three-headed monster attack that Green Bay used against one of the best defenses in the NFL?
I think you kind of hit it right on the head, is the Packers getting the running backs involved early and often too. We all know Aaron Rodgers, not Jay Cutler, is going to dice up pretty much every defense, especially if he gets time. Aaron Donald being hurt definitely kind of helped that because he wasn't able to wreak havoc. But you give Aaron Rodgers time, he's going to piece apart every defense. But when you add in a running game that gets over almost 200 yards, including Aaron running himself, there's not a whole lot anyone can do to stop it. Even missing their left tackle, they have an all-pro center as well too. They have really good offensive linemen to go with it. And if they can get Aaron Jones and the running backs going this week, it's going to be really tough for Tampa Bay. So I think getting Aaron Jones finally involved, because they kind of get away from him a little bit during the regular season. He'll have 40 yards in the first quarter, then he'll end up with 60 because they don't give him the ball again until the fourth quarter. So being able to ride him and Jamal Williams and AJ Dillon through the whole time gives them a whole lot of versatility that I don't think any of the defenses left can really handle if they can get it going like they did against the Rams.
Yeah, and I tried to say Corey Linsley's name as much as possible on the broadcast just because he is that other all-pro offensive lineman they had. But Billy Turner looked good stepping in for Bakhtiari, former Denver Bronco, and where Niko and I are pretty familiar with him. I think it comes down to the team who controls the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball normally ends up winning in the postseason, especially when you're playing in a place like Lambeau because there were snow flurries going off and on throughout that whole game. Did this have anything to do with the coaching? I mean, Niko mentioned it with the really good play designs that we saw, one from the Packers, one from the Rams, but does this maybe add to the argument, that Matt LaFleur is better than Sean McVay?
I don't know if I go that far, just because one has Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, one has Jared Goff with a destroyed thumb and not even Cooper Kupp, only Robert Woods. So I don't know if I go that far. I think they're two premier young offensive coaches. Like, if you told me I'm stuck with either one of them, I'd gladly smile and sign over my soul. But I don't think this game necessarily proves one or the other. Matt LaFleur's obviously had a little more success early on, but when you inherit a top 10 quarterback all time and the best receiver in the game right now, and an elite running back who gets underused, expectations are pretty high, but he's definitely he's done what he's needed to do with that talent as well too. It's not like he's holding them back by any means whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a age or experience thing anymore. I mean, this is his second year in a row that he's going to the NFC Championship game. We all know how disappointing that was last year. But let's move on now to the other matchup on Saturday. The High-Low Sports guys, you guys did this one as well. You guys did this for Colorcast and then also on a live stream as well, didn't you?
This one was just the live stream. We did Tampa Bay on Colorcast.
Got it. So the live stream, honestly, this one was an interesting matchup all around. Justin Tucker was missing field goals. The wind was blowing about every which direction you could imagine, which is why Buffalo tried so hard to get home field advantage. But I'll go to Jim first. What do you think led to the Bills being able to slow down Lamar Jackson and then be able to pick up kind of an ugly win in all honesty, but they were able to do it. And now we see the Buffalo Bills back in the AFC Championship. Jim, you're on mute if you're talking.
Freaking technology, I swear, it's not cooperating with me. Yeah, the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, how they slowed down the Ravens is basically how every team does. They force Lamar Jackson to throw. And when there, I think there was a stretch in the first quarter there that the Ravens had a chance to get real momentum, start really forcing Josh Allen and the Bills to really start, trying to be pressed. Buffalo's defense shut them down. And it's that read option RPO type of offense that Baltimore runs. And the Bills were just sitting there putting almost 8 to 9 guys in the box saying, Lamar, beat us in the air. And sometimes during the regular season, you can play an offense or defense that can force a quarterback to throw. But in the playoffs, you're not forcing the quarterback to throw. You're basically telling the quarterback, you got to beat us through the air. And Lamar Jackson did not show anything that he was going to make that next step. And Josh Allen, Buffalo making the AFC Championship game. It's been a long time from them. I think I forgot the last time they actually made the AFC Championship game. It's been a while.
93 or 94, one of those.
So it's almost been 20, 26, 27 years. So it's been a lengthy time. So for the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, how they stopped the Ravens is how they played against them earlier in the year, how other teams and other defenses play against the Ravens. They move the safety up on the weak side of Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has a hard time reading the second reads. And there are a lot of slant routes that were open for Lamar. He was hitting them, but they were keeping the passes down 20 yards. And they were making Baltimore chip and dunk all the way down the field, and they couldn't do it. And that's how you start Lamar Jackson in the NFL. In college, no one could have really done that unless it was Clemson or Alabama, whoever the top elite teams he played. But in the NFL, you have so many skilled players on that defense, and that defense just shut down that RPO. And you shut down Baltimore's RPO, they're nothing. And I feel bad for Lamar. He's a good guy. He's a MVP. But talking all that trash last week about you finally proved that you can win in the playoffs. Well, yeah, you won one game in the playoffs. You still haven't really proved that you can win in the playoffs. Yet it needs to be multiple wins. But I think Buffalo had it in them. You can honestly say it's their year, and Sunday's game against Kansas City could be a determining factor. Can they make it to the Super Bowl? And for the city of Buffalo, they deserve it. It's been a while, so they deserve it.
Yeah, and I think one of the underrated aspects, yes, the defense isn't as good as it had been last year for Buffalo, but they got some speed. And when you have speed, they brought down the safety when they needed to. But honestly, their linebackers, both I can't remember the guy besides Edmonds, I can't remember his last name, but they just have that kind of speed at the second and third level that you need to beat a quarterback who can't throw. I mean, I don't think anybody could throw in the wind that was happening on Saturday night, because even Josh Allen's passes were getting curved out of bounds and everything like that. Niko, what do you think about this game, and why do you think the Bills were able to handle the Ravens so easily?
Well, first of all, let's not blame Justin Tucker for what happened on Sunday. Or yeah, that game was on Sunday. Because that win, I think that was some of the craziest win we've ever seen in a playoff game. Maybe next to that Vikings game way back when I forgot who it was, missed the kick on like the 10-yard line. I'm totally spacing on it. I think
Vikings Seattle.
Yeah, Vikings Seattle. But that game, like we said, we were seeing Josh Allen's throws literally go out of bounds. He was literally throwing dots, and they were still curving right or curving left. It was definitely a hard terrain to play in. But that's why the Bills played their players week 17 right there. That is exactly why. Because I'm telling you right now, if that game was in Baltimore, we could have seen things a lot different. If that was a road game for the Bills, I mean, obviously the Ravens upset the Titans in the first round, but if that was a road game for the Bills, that things could have gone completely different. There's a reason why they played their starters week 17, and there's a reason why they're here, because they are a damn good team, and they proved it in week in and week out, and saying, we know how big of an advantage being in our home stadium is. Yeah, we're not at full capacity, but having some fans in the stadium, especially there in Buffalo, that makes a huge difference. obviously this is the matchup I wanted to see in the AFC Championship. But if they would have hosted another playoff game against the Browns, man, that would have been electric too. That would have been a lot of fun to see. Either way, the Bills have shown a lot. Josh Allen. The one thing that worries about me a lot is the running game. The running game is just not there at all. They threw one pass in the first half, I believe. I mean, it's a completely different scheme than what the Chiefs played the week before against the Browns, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But it's going to be interesting to see what the Chiefs do, because the Chiefs, in my opinion, they're better in the back end than they are up front when it comes to defense. They have Sorensen back there. They have Matthew. They have a bunch of studs back there and corners, well, corner wise as well, and they have a pretty good pass rush with Chris Jones. So when it comes to that, I think they're prepared to line up with the Bills better than they were to line up against the Browns. But this Bills team, their defense, we saw, like I said on our show, Jimmy, this defense is the defense we saw from last year. That was the number 1 or number 2 defense in the league. We did not see that at all this year, and now come playoff time when it matters, they're showing their worth, and boy, are they fun to watch.
Yeah, I think I tweeted it out a couple weeks ago when the Bills were having their wild card matchup. It kind of makes you feel bad for guys like Kyle Williams, who was a longtime defensive tackle, their leader and captain for that team, definitely deserved to be having this kind of a success. But I think those guys, especially for Buffalo, and then having McDermott come in, is just a total culture change, and they're reaping the benefits. I think they'll be pretty good for the next few years. Now, depending on what the Dolphins do, maybe the AFC East is actually really competitive again, that it hasn't been for Jim, how long has Brady played? He's on mute again.
Literally almost 20 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this can be the most competitive this division has been. DJ, my question for you, and it goes to what Niko was saying too, is this lack of running game going to be the downfall against the Kansas City Chiefs?
I don't necessarily think against the Chiefs it'll play as big of an issue, because the Chiefs normally, when they're blitz every team that basically stops the run to force you into pass situations to blitz. But since the Bills can't run anyway, they're just going to come out in their normal pressure looks. So I think it doesn't really affect the Bills too much, because they're already one-dimensional. So the Chiefs' strategy of making teams one-dimensional doesn't really change a whole lot. They're already going to go tit for tat on offense and firepower anyway. So I don't think it'll hurt too much. It obviously does not help, especially if the weather in KC is terrible, which it probably will be. But I think, and Josh Allen is their running back, if we're honest. I mean, they'll go 5 wide and just quarterback draw. So if they do more of that, they'll still find a way to move the ball on the ground. But the lack of getting Devin Singletary involved is a little concerning, but I don't think it'll be the downfall in this particular matchup.
Yeah, I think these are two teams that would really rather just throw it 55 times a game than actually put a running play in. I'm kind of hoping that Buffalo adds some sort of wildcat package or tries to do some of the same jet sweep motions, because maybe they can get Stephon Diggs involved and try and hold people that way. But I think that they're going to have to figure something out. Real quickly before this Zoom ends, because we aren't on, and none of the people with the unlimited Zoom were able to make it the show this morning, we'll talk about the Kansas City-Cleveland matchup, which was really close. I mean, we were inches away from seeing Cleveland not only win their first, or obviously they would have had to score, but not only win their first playoff game since 1994, but be in the AFC Championship, I think for the first time since the 80s. When they had the fumble and then the drive against the Broncos. So, well, what do we see? What did we see? Why do we think that the Chiefs were able to pull that victory off? But also, why was it so close? And I'll start with DJ on this one. What do you think made that game as competitive as it was?
I think the reason the Chiefs were able to take off early was because basically the opposite of the Bills, the Browns are dependent on the run game getting going. And once they were able to tee off on that and put the Browns in obvious passing situations, they were really, really limited early. And Baker's not exactly a Josh Allen or a Patty or any of those type of guys. And then I think it was so close, pretty much unfortunately, because when Patty got hurt, it allowed the Browns to get back into it. The Browns were going to score and keep it relatively close, but taking away a $500 million quarterback because you just had to run a speed option on 3rd and 1 up by 2 scores for some ridiculous reason. I think that kind of ended up, that's what allowed it to be close. If Patty, they don't run that with Patty, if they just hand it off to a running back like a normal team, or even let Travis Kelce run the speed option, anything but running an injured quarterback, on a speed option, but I digress. I think if he stays in there, the Chiefs probably roll a little more comfortably. So It was probably for me just the injury that let it get so close and gave the Browns a realistic shot. They probably should have won the game if it wasn't for Chad Hennessy saving the day at the end.
Yeah, who would have thought that we would see Chad Henne scramble for 13 yards to set up a 4th and inches to send the Chiefs to the AFC Championship game? Nico, my question for you, should Dan Sorensen have gotten called for targeting and that fumble not counted on that play down by the goal line with Rashard Higgins?
Well, first of all, we literally talked about this on our show as well. I am a firm believer that a team who fumbles the ball out of the end zone should not get the ball back. I think look, you gotta look at it this way. If you give that team the ball back, they get the ball on the 1 yard line. You're rewarding them for fumbling the ball forward into the end zone. That does not make sense to me. There's other ways around it. You can make it half the distance of where that team was originally on the goal or in the red zone. But fumbling through the end zone, if the defender makes a great enough play where he forces a fumble inside of the 80 yards, and forces that ball out of the back of the end zone, then he should be rewarded with it. Sorensen, I've had my run-ins with him, taking Lindsey out of the game, Philip Lindsay out of the game too. So he's Dirty Dan for a reason. There's no doubt about that. But when it comes to this Chiefs team, they're going to rely heavily. They're going to have Sorensen have a huge game because Tyrann Mathieu, he's been all over the field. But Dirty Dan, like you said, he's known to come up in the run, and he's going to have to be a big time stopper against the Bills, and then next round eventually as well if they do move on to the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay or Green Bay. The Chiefs defense in general, they're obviously it's the weak point of the team, but when Patrick Mahomes is going, and I mean, like I said, I said this Monday, Patrick Mahomes is playing. It doesn't matter. They'll clear him, and obviously they have cleared him. He was cleared the day before we're recording this, and I was no doubt in my mind he was going to play. When it comes to this Chiefs team, they're going to go as far as their offense takes them, because if a defense can't slow this Chiefs team down, if they score more than 30 points, I guarantee a Chiefs win, because it's very hard to put up points against to match points with the Chiefs team like this. So for the Bills to compete with this team, they're going to have to get to that secondary, get to Sorensen, get to Tyrann Mathieu, and put up points alongside them, because, I mean, if you don't want to get in a shootout with the Chiefs.
No, I don't disagree with the fumble. I mean, I did on Monday. I was more talking about Dan Sorensen, that if the penalty is called on him, that fumble is negated, because then they just move it up for 15 yards on a personal foul. Jim, what did you think about that whole sequence with Dan Sorensen, the hit on Rashard Higgins? It was definitely dirty. There's nobody that can convince me otherwise, because he ducked his head, hit him with the top of his head and the side of Rashard Higgins' head, and that's what the rule was designed for. What did you think about that sequence and how it was handled by the officials?
It was handled terribly by the officials. It should. The NFL should adapt the college football method with targeting. Maybe just alter it a little bit, not like it be eject the player. That's one part of the rule I hate in college. But that was a pivotal moment in the game, like a couple years ago when we saw in St. Louis, the Rams versus New Orleans, how that pass interference that wasn't called was a pivotal moment in the game. Though that would have changed the narrative of the game. Yes, if the Browns would have scored, they would have had the lead, but it didn't determine if they were going to win the game. But it would put pressure on the Kansas City Chiefs minus Patrick Mahomes to pull off a comeback and win. It was a big. We've seen this in multiple games, in my opinion, is if referees take control of a game like that with a obvious blown call with the referee right there not throwing the flag, it tells you things about the National Football League. And to our listeners out here, do some research. Go look at some of the most controversial pass interference calls and penalties that weren't called. And go look at who the betting favorite was in that game. They always favor the betting favorite. That is a little conspiracy theory. I did it because Pat McAfee said something about it on his podcast last week or earlier this week. And shockingly, you can go back almost 9 years to controversial plays in the postseason. They're all related to the team and favor the team that's the betting favorite. Conspiracy. But still, it was a hell of a game. Good job for Cleveland. they're happy in Cleveland. They made it to the second round of the playoffs, the divisional round, for an organization that has been notorious for losing for so many years. It's a very good, it's a good story. It's just like, the movie Major League. They won the first round of the playoffs and went to the next round, and you never heard the story about in the second round. So, but we were so close of having the Buffalo Bills and the Cleveland Browns AFC Championship game. That would have been something I think no one would have predicted 5 years ago. So yeah, it was an entertaining game, and you have to say one thing: Kenny doesn't matter. That was incredible. An old man running 16 yards and got the first down. He didn't even run for a first down in Jacksonville, not even 2 yards. In Kansas City, he runs for 19 to get the first down. Jesus. Kansas City, there's just something. And Mahomes is back and cleared. Yeah, I can't bet against Kansas City. So it's going to be entertaining. It's going to be a great weekend.
Yeah, I don't disagree with some of the conspiracies. I threw out on our show that there might, if Mahomes wasn't progressing as quickly as he did through concussion protocol, that there would have been an outbreak, quote unquote, and they would have pushed the game. Because like we've mentioned a few times, the NFL has the facilities for the Super Bowl for like 3 weeks. It's extended in case there is some sort of outbreak with the virus and everything like that. Didn't have to do it. He's able to, I'm pretty sure they gave him the Billy Bob from Varsity Blues. Man's holding up some fingers, true or false. It's true. And then he's able to go on. But we'll go ahead, and the Zoom's going to come to an end. We'll come back talking about the Tampa Bay New Orleans divisional matchup. And then we'll discuss a little bit more out of that game, because there were some pretty big headlines that involved both the Saints and the Colts. But that's
due to technical difficulties, and my dumbass doesn't know how to work the camera sometimes, we're going to have a small little ad. Except we don't have an ad. So we're going to plug the NFL Unhinged show on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. to noon to 12. So it's a 2-hour show. How about that? 2-hour show. I'm going to have to wake my ass up that early at 8 a.m. But be sure to check me, Jimmy out, the J-Dash guys, the High-Low Sports as well. Man, all of us.
Gridiron Gallery.
Gridiron Gallery, a little bit of everything. Maybe we'll have more guests on. Who knows? Be sure to check us out on Sunday mornings.
Yeah, if you want to see what a budgeted Sam Ponder looks like, you can. Actually, I don't know if we're doing the video, but you'll be able to hear. I'll be moderating, and we got tons of opinions.
You can picture Sam Ponder, but hear Jimmy's voice.
Yeah, that's exactly. Everybody makes. I sound exactly like Sam Ponder, but that's coming up on the Unhinged Network live Sundays from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern time.
So without further ado, since we don't have another ad, let's go back to the show.
all right. We've talked about all the rest of the divisional matchups, and now we're going to get to the Sunday night game and what's going to turn out to be, the WWE does it all the time, ending of an era matches. Think of Triple H versus Undertaker at WrestleMania, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair. That's my WWE nerdum for you. But DJ, you and Kelsey were calling this one on Colorcast in your live event or your live stream. What was the factor that you saw? I mean, other than the fact that this was the third time these teams have played this year, what led the New Orleans Saints to pick up the win, or not pick up the win, get beat by Tampa Bay for the first time this season?
I think part of it was, where was Mike Thomas the entire time? Like every time he threw the ball, I kept accidentally saying Mike Thomas to the catch when he's Emmanuel Sanders, just by habit. I caught myself I gave him like 6 catches he did not get whatsoever. So him being on the field didn't help. It ended up hindering them. I mean, I know it's Mike Thomas, and usually just his presence draws a crowd, opens up things up for everyone else, but he was clearly injured, clearly wasn't healthy, and Drew kept trying to find him in weird spots, including that first pick that he threw where he recklessly just kind of floated like, oh, Mike Thomas out there somewhere. And then it gets picked off, and that's one of the first momentum changes against him too. So I think that was a big thing, just not having your number one target healthy and kind of wasting a lot of plays on him. And then the second part was Drew started pressing it really, really down the stretch. I think once Tampa Bay adjusted, started sitting on every route under 10 yards, whenever Drew Brees tried to force it down the field, it looked kind of like 2015 Peyton Manning. The arm was just shot. It had trouble getting there. If it was wide open, he could get it there. If he anticipated, he could. But like that pick by Devin White trying to force it to Alvin Kamara, that basically was Drew throwing it really early and staring down Alvin Kamara because he knew that was basically the extent of where he's going to be able to comfortably get the ball. They had to bring in Jameis Winston for a shot play. I mean, that's kind of all you need to know necessarily. So I think it was just kind of and beating a team 3 times, especially one led by Tom Brady with 18 all-pro receivers on the team. That's a tough feat for just about everybody. So I think it was just more of the Saints kind of running out of steam, I guess, more or less. You didn't have the necessary Mike Thomas being hurt, not having the necessary weapons to go against a team like that. That's also rolling too. Tampa's won 6 of the last 7, something along those lines. New Orleans has been good, but they haven't been outstanding down the stretch. So I think that was kind of more the deal for me, was lack of Mike Thomas and lack of Drew Brees being able to push the ball.
Yeah, I feel your pain as the fellow play-by-play guy when we do color casts. Sometimes you just mess up a name, or when we do basketball games, I don't know any basketball players, so I'm always calling it out for the wrong person. That's why Nico's there when we do that. I agree with you that the Saints, this is not the Saints team that was supposed to win the Super Bowl. I mean, that was a couple years ago when they were right in the middle of their window. But Nico, do you think that Taysom Hill not being able to play, do you think that maybe added to the pressure the Saints were already feeling with Brees being as old as he is, not playing as well as he had earlier in his career?
If the Saints were relying on Taysom Hill to be their savior for this playoff game, then I'm gonna tell you right now, they weren't gonna win the Super Bowl. They would have ran into a buzzsaw in Green Bay, or they would have got their ass kicked in the Super Bowl. So if they were relying on Taysom Hill to be their X factor at the quarterback position to make a big playoff run, they weren't going to go very far. Their defense had their flaws. Their defense the whole season, in my opinion, was a little bit skewed because they had a few good games where they held teams under 3 or under a touchdown, and one of those games was against the Broncos with a 5th string quarterback. So that defense was flawed. They just struggled when it comes to Drew Brees. Damn, it was a shame to see him go out like this. It goes to show how that I want to keep talk about my Broncos because I can here. It goes to show the character of Peyton and how he went out on top because he was not good his last year, and Drew Brees is not good this year. It seemed like he was already halfway out the door, but the Broncos team around him still rallied around him. We saw no sign of Alvin Kamara, no sign of him at all. Michael Thomas didn't have a catch. Are you kidding me? You're an all-pro receiver and you can't even get a catch. Obviously, it's not on him for the quarterback to get him the ball, but still, you run slants every other fucking play. You got to be able to do something and get a little bit of separation to make Drew's life a little bit easier. Obviously, my pissed off comes up from him because of my fantasy football fucking league.
I was just about to say, you're still a little bit bitter from fantasy.
I'm still salty about that, so I'm gonna keep going on him. But saying I was playing through injury because of Drew and everything, yeah, I'll give you kudos for that. But at this point, you should have just not played. You were hurting the team as it was. Emmanuel Sanders, I love Emmanuel Sanders. I will always love Emmanuel Sanders. He's a great number 2 receiver in this game still. And the Saints were using him a lot, and having him be your number 1, where the hell's the other guy? Where the hell's Michael Thomas? Where the hell is all these other weapons? Like I said, Alvin Kamara was a no-show. When it comes to Drew Brees and his legacy, it's a shame he only got 1 Super Bowl. Like I said on our show, it was a crazy fact. Tom Brady currently has more wins against NFC opponents in the playoffs than Drew Brees. Fun fact. He has 1 more after this week against the Saints. He has 1 more than Drew Brees, considering all the Super Bowls and everything. So that was a fun fact. But when it comes to Drew Brees, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He'll go down as one of the greatest of all time. He had a terrible start in San Diego. San Diego is where careers go to die. Just wait on Justin Herbert to have a mediocre career going forward because he's stuck on the Chargers. Like you said, he had mediocre start in San Diego, came to New Orleans, rejuvenated a city during Hurricane Katrina, and brought that city back up off the ground, basically. We saw the stories from Tyrann Mathieu. We saw, Joe Burrow wears 9 because of him. There's a lot of different things. Drew Brees is a great man for the city and a great man for the game of football. It's just unfortunate that he went out like this. There's no doubt in my mind he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But like I said, I would have loved to see him win 1 more Super Bowl because only having 1 on your name is kind of a little bit of a disdain considering all the numbers you put up for your career. You could go the same about Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers still has years under him where he could still prove himself and get another ring.
Yeah, and it came out after the game that Brees was not only playing injured, but all those broken ribs, one of them punctured his lung, a torn ligament in his rotator cuff. and then a torn fascia in his foot, which for a quarterback that's why he couldn't throw it more than 25 yards, because you got to plan on your foot. Jim, your guy made it to the NFC Championship, his first NFC Championship appearance with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Are you excited as a former or as a Patriots fan, a former with Brady being your former quarterback, or are you a little bit disappointed that he wasn't able to do this in New England anymore?
First off, am I excited he made the NFC Championship game? Yeah, he's what we thought he was, and we're starting to realize as Patriots fans that it wasn't Belichick's team; it was Tom Brady's team. And Brady, yes, played well, but you have to tip your hat to Tampa Bay's defense. They held New Orleans under 300 yards of offense, and they forced 4 turnovers. 4 turnovers. I don't care who you are or who you play. You have 4 turnovers, you're going to lose the game. And as a fan of the Brady, I appreciate watching Breeze. I appreciate the matches against, Eli and Peyton and all the greats over the last couple of years. And it's just, for me, yes, I was, glad that Brady made it. I don't care about the city of Tampa Bay. So you Tampa Bay fans, oh, you're a bandwagon. No, screw your city. But Breeze, I did not want Breeze to go out that way. That was not a performance I wanted him to go out. Now, it would have been nice if it would have been like an epic fourth quarter comeback that fell short. That would have been different. But he didn't look good at all. His receivers weren't helping him. Tampa Bay was flying around on defense. Tampa Bay's defensive line was busting through. And when only one pass is over 20 yards in completion, and it's not from Breeze and it's from Jameis Winston, you have problems. And the Saints were just showing signs throughout the last couple of weeks that they just don't have enough. They were, like what Niko said, they were a Super Bowl team 3 years ago, which the year I think everyone can agree they got screwed in the NFC Championship game. That was their year to go to the Super Bowl. But yeah, Brady advanced. But one of the coolest things, putting the Brady and the legacy of the GOAT and Breeze aside, the videos that happened after the game with Brady coming back out talking to Drew Brees, that just tells you that it's more than a game. These are 2 legends. These are 2 friends. And you could tell by how Breeze was talking to Jameis on the sideline and how he looked at that scoreboard going through the tunnel at the very end of the game, that it was it. And it was basically that video at the end of the game really hit me. It's like, you know what? It's not the way Breeze should have gone out. But you gotta respect Brady. He came back and talked to Breeze. That's showing a true guy. Even though you might hate him, he's a true professional, and that's the love of the game. And that's one thing I appreciate about last week.
Yeah, I think that if you haven't seen that video, it's definitely worth going and watching. But it's also interesting to talk about guys, and now we'll transition not away from the games, but guys like Breeze and guys like Phillip Rivers, who have played at a very high level for longer than a lot of people thought. I mean, Breeze was a 2nd round pick to the Chargers, like Niko said, didn't have the greatest start to his career. And when he got injured and then traded from San Diego, nobody knew if he'd be able to throw the ball again, because he was I believe he tore his labrum when that injury happened in San Diego. And then Phillip Rivers, all the hoopla about his draft class and Eli not wanting to go to, I can't even remember what team it was, but all of that, and then coming out of NC State, becoming one of the better quarterbacks, especially regular season wise and wild card round wise. I think that we have to respect these guys who are so competitive, but they can sense when their play has gone down to the point where they're not going to help the team anymore. They really made the decision, I think, to retire for the betterment of the franchises that they've played for. DJ, I'll start, since it was your quarterback for this last season. Do you have a little bit more respect for Phillip Rivers with the way he handled, obviously, his disappointing playoff game and all of the disappointment that they've had this season? Do you kind of have a little bit more respect for him now that he's able to walk away, knowing that he's not beneficial anymore?
I think it was a good idea for him to walk away, just because you could kind of see it a lot this season too. He had lost a little bit of a step. Throwing the ball completely sideways with that broken motion eventually is going to wear on your arm a little bit. And at the same time, playing the whole season with an injured foot, an injured toe, injuries all over the place. And he played 240 something consecutive games after he took over for Breeze in San Diego. So he's never missed a start. He's probably not in that. He's definitely not in that class like Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. He's probably a tier below those guys. Hall of Fame quarterback, probably not a first ballot. But he definitely probably goes down as the most gangster quarterback, playing through all the injuries. As AFC Championship game on a torn ACL, this season on a destroyed foot, a couple seasons with an injured arm. He definitely wins as far as playing through injuries, especially for a guy who cannot move whatsoever. So when he has an injured foot, he's even less mobile. We saw him try and make a tackle in the Ravens game, and he looked like a fish that flopped out of water. So I think he definitely gets points for that. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's top 5 in a bunch of statistical categories. He's not transcendental, I guess, and he's playing with Breeze and Manning and Brady and Aaron Rodgers. If he plays in any other era, I think he gets a little more recognition. But when you're compared to 3 of the top 7 quarterbacks all time, give or take, depending on how you want to rank him, that kind of hurts. So he's probably in that 13-ish range, but I would probably take him over Eli and Big Ben. Honestly, we're comparing that class as far as better quarterbacks. I mean, Eli had 2 magical postseason runs that he has never been able to duplicate again. He has 0 playoff wins outside those 2 years and leads the league in interceptions. How many times? 3, 4. And Big Ben, he's had some more success in the postseason, but his Super Bowl appearances have been absolutely terrible, minus 1 great pass to Antonio Holmes. I mean, the one against Seattle, which everyone remembers officiating, they forgot Big Ben was absolutely egregious. They had to bring in Antoine Randall to throw a touchdown pass. So I would probably take Phillip over those 2 if we want to compare the draft class, even though he doesn't have the Super Bowl rings. But Hall of Fame quarterback, not transcendental. Any other era, we probably look at him as a little bit higher up on the list, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Niko, I know that you hate Phillip Rivers. I know that we said on our show we always hated Phillip Rivers, but do you have a little bit of respect for the way that he handled his exit and kind of, obviously we hated him because he was on the opposite team, but would you have liked him to be do you think you'd been a fan of him if he played for one of the teams that you rooted for?
The hatred of Phillip Rivers goes against the player. It's nothing against him personally. It's because he was against the rival team. One of the things with Phillip Rivers, I'm gonna say this outright. 4 years ago, when Peyton retired, I thought our championship window was still open for the Broncos, and I originally thought, why not Phillip Rivers? Because I thought maybe he had another year under him or 2 years of prime. He could have, and I was one of those guys because the Chargers were thinking about moving on already, and that was one of the thoughts about it. The thing with Phillip Rivers, people got to realize is he was in the same conference in his prime against 3 first ballot Hall of Famers. And Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady. That's a murder's row right there. You had to get through all 3 of those guys every single year to get a chance at the Super Bowl. So that is not easy at all. If he was in the NFC, honestly, we probably could have seen him maybe in a Super Bowl at some point. We could have finally seen that. Phillip Rivers, I give him shit all the time about it because like I said, he was a Chargers quarterback. I never thought he could win the big one, and blah blah blah. But I have utmost respect for him. I hats off to him. He's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he will be a Hall of Famer, no doubt in my mind. He deserves all the credit because he's been great for the city of San Diego, and great for the city of LA at the time, and then obviously what he did in Indianapolis was incredible. He just, like I said, he ran into the wrong era, in my opinion. He ran into the wrong era going against Brady, Manning, and Roethlisberger in the playoffs every single year is no easy. And if you're able to get out of the AFC into the Super Bowl picture, like the Ravens were able to for 1 year, and you don't have Roethlisberger, Peyton, or Brady at quarterback, that proves something. So Phillip Rivers was just never able to get over the hump. He had a hell of a career. He made a lot of players who they were. Vincent Jackson is a great example. Antonio Gates. What would Antonio Gates be without him? LT, obviously, down there in San Diego, him and Phillip Rivers ran that organization. They brought that organization up from nothing. The Chargers are still nothing, in my opinion, but they're better than where they were before Phillip Rivers and LT. So he should have his number 17 retired there in LA. Yeah, in LA. He's going to be a Hall of Famer in the future. He's great for the game. He plays with passion. I think the JJ Watt story about him really showed a lot because he was a competitor, and him calling a linebacker out saying you're lined up wrong because this is your blitz, and then being completely right. I think that's hilarious. That just shows the work ethic and the type of character he had. I will never disrespect someone when it comes to their person and manlyhood. When it comes to the game, I will hate you because that's just the fan inside me. But when it comes to the man and the person he is on and off the field, he deserves my utmost respect, and he deserves all the credit in the world.
Jim, do you have any final thoughts to add on either Breeze or Philip Rivers' career and how they ended up going out? You mentioned your thoughts on Breeze, but what do you think about Philip Rivers coming out and retiring this past week as well?
First off, I agree with everything what Nico said about Philip Rivers. I couldn't stand him because he was a thorn in our side for a couple of playoff games. But one thing about Philip Rivers is the guy played 244 games in his career. I think he's only missed 4 in his whole career, and he started the rest of them. That's longevity. That's the guy who was a part of a losing organization for most of his career, made 7 playoff appearances, and 8-time Pro Bowler. Keesh Louise, really? And one thing me and Carlos of my podcast were talking about is that he's in the top 7 in fourth quarter comebacks of all quarterbacks in their history. Top 7. He has 29 fourth quarter comebacks. And that tells you a lot about a quarterback. That's a killer instinct that a guy has. Yes, I still don't understand how he made it 17 years in the NFL with that throwing motion. I guarantee all the quarterback coaches that he had to deal with, they're like, what are you doing? Are you a sidearm pitcher for the San Diego Padres? No, I'm the quarterback for San Diego. Okay, how in the hell are you throwing the football like that? But a guy, he managed to do it at NC State. I still remember going to one of my very first Florida State games and playing up against some kid called Philip Rivers, and he threw for 450 yards against Florida State and had no idea who the hell he was. 2 years later, he was drafted in the NFL. So he had a good career. He put the University of NC State on the map. Of course, there was a couple guys like Mario Edwards and Russell Wilson, to name a few. But it's going to be odd not seeing both Breeze and Rivers in the NFL next year. And luckily for San Diego or LA, they have their replacement already. And for the Colts, they may go Jacoby. They may have to go after a free agent. And in New Orleans, to touch it, is it really going to be Jameis Winston? So there's a lot of questions not next season with these two teams, but you have to appreciate the now. And Phil Rivers, in my opinion, I think retired at the right time. I think he did it better. I think Drew Brees knew his time was up, but wanted to have that one more last hurrah. And Philip Rivers knew this is it no matter what. So both guys went out a different way, and it's going to be odd not seeing them. I despise the man on the field, but now he has to go take care of 12 kids, 13 kids. It's the offseason because before you know it, he's going to have a starting 22 a football team by himself. So, yeah, it's going to be weird. We're going to see him in CBS or Fox covering games, just like Tony Romo. So he's not going to be gone.
Yeah, same with Breeze. I think Breeze is already in contention possibly for the Monday Night Football role if Louis Riddick leaves. So we won't see the end of either of those guys.
No, and I think that's still my favorite graphic from this past season when the Colts were playing the Bengals and they were comparing the careers of Joe Burrow and Philip Rivers. Is like 17 years. This is his first year. And then at the very bottom, children. Philip Rivers has 9. Joe Burrow, obviously, he's only like 24, so he has none. But that was, Fox was having a lot of fun with their graphics this year, but I think I echo all the sentiments that were said. I have a lot of respect for him outside the field. If I was playing against him, I would have probably dug an elbow into his ribs more times than I could count. But speaking of the quarterbacks that have transitioned on, let's transition back to some quarterbacks who are not trying to move on from their career, but trying to move on from their games. And Niko actually just sent me a message about Deshaun Watson wanting to put New York at the top of his list now that Robert Saleh was hired. Apparently Houston's been like taking phone calls, but then making outrageous demands. Like, you have to wash my car for the next 4 years, plus give me 3 first-round draft picks and everything like that. Do we think that Deshaun Watson is going to not be in Houston any longer? And then do we think that New York is a good landing spot for him? Niko, since you brought it up, I'll let you start.
Well, the reports are saying, that he's played his last game in Houston. What Houston wants in return, that does hinder the Jets' chances, but the Jets have the ability to do it very easily because you can give the number 2 pick away. And if I'm being honest, Deshaun Watson is worth the number 2 pick. Don't get me wrong; he is worth the number 2 pick 100%.
Agreed.
I mean, you can send Sam Darnold and the number 2 pick to Houston and be able to make a deal where you don't give up as many firsts as the other teams have. So if you're the Jets, you're in a prime position. If Deshaun Watson wants to come play for you, that's saying something. Considering the season you had last year, that is prime position. Because honestly, if you're a Jets fan, yes, you lose out on Trevor Lawrence, but if you get Deshaun Watson, all is okay in New York. All is okay. Because right now, if you get Deshaun Watson, you are the team in New York right now. The Giants have been struggling. They almost made the playoffs. But if Deshaun Watson and Robert Saleh are the head of your franchise in New York, that is what you want to see. That is exactly what you want to see. We all said it last week. Robert Saleh, that head coaching signing by the Jets, could be the best we'll ever see out of that organization for a very long time. That he changed the whole mantra of it. I mean, the Texans still have not hired a coach, and they're not even interviewing Eric Bieniemy. What the fuck are they doing in Houston? This is just a shit show after another. I mean, what at one point was the most intriguing head coaching job because of the possibility of Deshaun Watson now is the worst head coaching job next to the Philadelphia job. Don't get me wrong, but between those two are now the worst spots to be in. If you do not want to go to Houston, that is why because you have to either rebuild right away or you're stuck in the gutter. And the Texans cucked themselves when they traded for Laramie Tunsil. You would have had a top 4 pick as it is. Imagine you don't trade for Laramie Tunsil. You have the same whole situation going around, and you have a chance to trade with the Jets for the number 2 pick. The Texans could be sitting here with the 2nd and 3rd pick in this year's draft and be set up for the future. Exactly for the future. But they decided that they wanted to get rid of their best one of the best top 5 receivers in this game, DeAndre Hopkins, for literally chump change because David Johnson hasn't done anything at all. And it's just ridiculous. If I'm Deshaun Watson, I don't hate the New York Jets option. I'm going to be biased. I think the Broncos option is a little bit better because of the weapons he'd have around him. But the Robert Saleh connection would be a lot more fun. And the Jets, obviously, they would build around him. The second option was the Miami Dolphins. And I'm going to shoot that down right away because the Texans Texans aren't high on Tua as it is.
The Dolphins aren't even high on Tua. So how can anybody else be?
So it's not like that. That's an option that will unless Tua becomes an absolute stud, that won't be a thing that the Texans want to do. If they're probably higher on Sam Darnold because Sam Darnold still has the promise there. You could draft or you could trade for Sam Darnold, draft a quarterback at number 2 still, and have options. If you're the Texans, you could rebuild right away if you trade with the Jets, and it shows more of the character of Robert Saleh. This, in my opinion, this shows how much respect he gets around the league. Because Deshaun Watson didn't know anything about Robert Saleh, but hasn't played for him, hasn't done anything about it. But the word around the league is how beloved he is and how much of a character guy he is. And the Jets hit the home run with this hire. The Texans are fumbling the bag every single day because another day Deshaun Watson is wearing your team's colors and your head coaching job is still vacant. That team is more down the gutter. And we could be seeing another situation where the Texans are now bottom seller again. I mean, they've never been get over the hump at all. And they only were able to get to the playoffs a few times, but they never able to get to the second round. And they're the newest franchise in the NFL still. And having a centerpiece like Deshaun Watson to build around, and J.J. Watt, and so much more talent, DeAndre Hopkins, they've had the talent. They just have not built around them at all. And if you're a Jets, if you're a Jets fan, Jimmy, I'm sure if your brother is caught up in anything of all this, you got to be loving it because Saleh will be a great coach for you. Deshaun Watson picked the Jets as the number 1 option. If that doesn't say enough about where they're going, I don't know what is. But with the Jets, like I said, I feel like I keep ranting on, but the Jets are in a great spot now with Saleh. I would love to see Deshaun Watson on the Jets or the Broncos, but I mean, either way, it's going to be interesting to see what they all do with it all, because I don't think Deshaun Watson will play another game as a Texan.
DJ, I'll go to you since you haven't really been in any of our discussions about head coaching hires or where Deshaun Watson's going to go. Do you see this as a realistic possibility?
I think it's kind of the best, most reasonable option, which I'll start by saying, could you imagine how much that would suck for Sam Darnold? You sit through this Jets catastrophe your whole career, then you get sent to Houston as it's completely imploding. Like, that poor guy, he cannot catch a break. But if I'm the Jets and the Houston, that's probably the one that makes the most sense, because Deshaun's probably not playing for you at this point. You basically have to suck his asshole really hard for the next few weeks to get him to want to stick around. But if you have to send him somewhere, send him to New York, get the second pick, get Sam Darnold to see what you can do with him. Maybe another first-round pick next year, something along those lines. Maybe a third, too, just because it is Deshaun Watson. You get everything you can. If you're the Jets, you completely knock out the biggest group position out there, and you get a top 5 to 7 guy with a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator who came with him from San Francisco. And you still have pick like 23, I think it is, 22, whatever it is they got from Seattle in the Jamal Adams trade. You could trade back that one, too, for someone else who wants to jump up and get more picks. So kind of fits both of them, because Houston needs picks because they have no money, no picks, a lot of money on the cap, and a whole lot of problems. So I think you kind of have to get Deshaun, and that's your only leverage at this point. Probably even try and trade JJ Watt too. They got to completely set it on fire and start from the bottom, and starts with getting head coach, but one issue at a time, I guess. And I think you have to get the Deshaun thing figured out before you get a coach, because no coach is going to sign up like, okay, I get Deshaun and he's gone. Or they're not going to show up like, I have to trade Deshaun. Oh, wait, now he wants this. They got to figure that out first. But I like the Jets and Deshaun. I think that's a good trade for both sides. I think it'll work, considering they don't want to in Miami's picks, but nobody really wants to at this point.
No, I mean, I've said it before. Miami doesn't even want Tua. Do you think that Saleh, do you like that hire? Do you think that might be the better hire coming out of this year's coaching class?
I kind of wanted them to get an offensive coach, because I wanted to see Sam Darnold succeed. I want to see him with a young, not idiotic Adam Gase leading the way, but you can't really argue with Robert Saleh. He's a stud of a head coaching candidate. He was all the buzz last year. The Niners just won too many playoff games, so he didn't really get a job last year. And this year that wasn't too much of an option. So I really like it. I think he's going to turn the Jets around. And I think if you get Deshaun, you get the quarterback thing taken care of. So I really like it. That defense was for the dumpster fire the Jets were. Their defense does have some players. Their interior defensive line with Quinnen Williams, I can't remember the other guy's name, but they were among the league leaders in pressure up the gut from D tackles. Marcus May, Ashton Davis, they got some players. I mean, they were absolutely terrible for 12 weeks, but they have some talent. And now you bring in a head coach like this, they're going to be a force for a while. I think they're going to start the comeback real quick.
They also get CJ Mosley back from injury for that defensive end as well. Jim, what do you see this as a realistic possibility for Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans to part ways and then head up northeast to your division? I know you probably don't want that, but do you see this as a possibility happening?
Yes, I think it is. It's because the Jets are more liable to take on that type of contract. For what DJ mentioned about the Houston Texans, they have no room to buy a grilled cheese sandwich. Their salary cap is so tight. They got players that want the hell out of there, including their quarterback. No one wants to play in the city of Houston. Not even the Astros want to play in the city of Houston. So something's going wrong in Houston. It's just Deshaun is a big time quarterback in the NFL. He goes to the New York City area, he becomes a superstar. He'll be the man in New York. Maybe as big as when Carmelo Anthony went to the Knicks. He was the man in New York. Then Carmelo's career went down the tubes quick. So I don't want to wish that upon Deshaun Watson. And yeah, he's going to be in the AFC East. The Patriots are nowhere near contention in that division for the next few years unless they do some dramatic changes, like go after Jimmy Garoppolo this offseason, which is what I've been reading. It's going to be an option for them. And draft the quarterback. So the Patriots are no threat, but having Deshaun in the East will be very interesting rivalry between him and Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. But yeah, the Patriots are not going to be a contender. But yes, the Jets have the salary cap. They have the rooms and they have enough draft picks to give at Houston some draft, because if the draft started today, the Texans don't draft until I think the third round, midway through the third round. And that's what 70th, 80th place in the draft order. You're missing out on so much talented players, and that's when you start getting the later stages in the late third and early fourth, where you're just trying to find the diamonds in the rough. that, are good players, can be good players, but you won't find the next great player or the next name, the household name player in the NFL. So the Jets, in my opinion, they've been a dumpster fire for about 5 years. And I feel like what DJ just said about Sam Darnold, yeah, that sucks. Get traded to the Texans, and the Texans are literally they're Titanic right now. They're sinking. J.D. Watt's going to be gone. Merciless is going to be gone. I think I want to say Fuller wants out of there. Deshaun wants out of there. So the Houston Texans next year team will be the resemblance of the replacements because all their good players are going to be gone. And for Houston, they deserve it. That owner deserves it. That honestly, Bill O'Brien deserves it. Trading away D-Hop for a rundown running back. It's that organization is dumpster fire. Then Deshaun said, "Oh, we're going to be a playoff contender when you start the season 1-6." So I feel bad for Deshaun. He needs to get out of Houston. And the Jets are perfect right now. They have draft capital. They have the cap, and it's a big city, big lime. Starlight. Yeah, I see it happening.
Yeah, and I think the NFL would like to see it happen as well because, like you said, they want to get a marketable guy, a guy who led the league in passing by a good portion, almost threw for 5,000 yards this past season.
On a bad team.
Yeah, on a team that was terrible, and his number one receiver got popped for steroids halfway through the season. So, I mean, obviously he's a top. DJ said top 7. I'll go one further. I say he's top 5, possibly top 3 in the league talent-wise. I don't know what else you're looking for. I agree with Nico. Dom, you should get on Twitter and just tweet at the Jets every single day. Please sign Deshaun Watson. Give up the house. I'll say it this way. You give them, and I can't emphasize this next part enough, whatever the hell they want. If they want you to come down to Houston, wash their car, that's fine. Go ahead and do it.
Give them ownership to the Knicks. Give them the Empire State Building. Give them the Madison Square Garden. Give them whatever. And I mean, can't emphasize this enough. Whatever they want. Give them Noah Syndergaard too.
Let them have it all. It's theirs. Yeah. That being said, though, if the Houston is going to be the replacements next year, go and call your boy up. I can still run a slant pattern if you guys need me. I'll do it for the vet minimum.
If Deshaun goes to if the Deshaun Watson goes to the Jets, they can literally, start building a stadium in fucking New York and literally beat the New York Jets, not the New Jersey, Jets. Not like I call them. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I think that we'd have a few guys. If the Texans are looking for tryouts, I'm sure that we'd have a few guys from the network go over there. I mean, that could be good content. I don't know if Jim's going to force that on anybody, but I know Kelsey used to play. Zach probably still looking to get back out there. I don't know if I got one more. DJ can run a slant. I got to put some of the weight on that I've been losing back, but I don't disagree with anything anybody said. I mean, I think the Texans are going to be the next team that possibly go 0-16, especially depending on how this offseason goes. But honestly, the main thing for me with that franchise is who's going to want to be the head coach there. I know head coaches are alpha males, but even if you're the biggest alpha male, do you really have any confidence that you're going to be able to turn that franchise around with what we know that they have going in? Is anybody going to tell me I'm wrong? Does anybody have an argument for that? Or are they just the absolute shits right now?
Oh, they're in the gutter 100%.
Yeah.
If you're a young coach that hasn't been on the market for jobs, maybe that's an intriguing spot, because I mean there is some coaches out there that have been waiting to get their chance and getting a chance to rebuild, where you probably have no expectations whatsoever, especially if you trade Deshaun Watson. Might be intriguing.
Vance Joseph.
Don't fucking say that name. Or you know what? I'll go one further. Josh McDaniels, go to fucking Houston. Because you're a shithead coach too. He doesn't deserve any job whatsoever. He's a perfect fit for Houston.
Hasn't Houston been through enough? Why do you got to put that on them too? I mean, damn, Nico, that's just adding insult to injury at that point. But I think it's safe to say this Houston job is the worst head coaching opening we've seen in a while. You have no picks, no money, and now your best player wants out, and your second best player is injury prone and 500 years old.
And it's bad when they're interviewing a quarterback that's still on the roster for the Philadelphia Eagles for the head coaching position.
Your practice squad quarterback is a contender for your head coach. That's
sad.
I was going to say, throwing the Josh McDaniels out there, that might get DJ a little bit upset with what he did a few years ago to Indianapolis.
Blessing in disguise. Didn't need that man-child anywhere near here anyway, so it worked out.
Oh, yeah, no, Nico and I got to see it firsthand. It would have totally been even worse than – I mean, Frank Reich was obviously the better option out of those two candidates. We might as well, we'll go ahead and get into the break. We're coming up on the end of this Zoom meeting. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the other headlines and then get into the picks because like we said, it's championship weekend and we got everybody's picks. So even the guys that aren't here, DJ's got Kelsey's picks. I have Zach's picks, and then obviously Niko and Jim will be able to speak for themselves. But we got plenty more coming up. You're listening to NFL Unhinged on the Unhinged Sports Network.
What's up, benchwarmers of the Unhinged Sports Network? We got another thing to get to because, nobody likes dealing with cable companies in 2020. And here at the Unhinged Sports Network, we wanted to cater to you guys to go into the new age, cut your cable cords with Fubo TV. We have a new link, a new partnership. You can go to the link in our bio, and if you sign up for a subscription through that link, you will kick back a little bit of money to the Unhinged Sports Network so we can continue to bring great content all across this platform. And we got big things coming up in 2021, so you're going to have to get in on this, and we're helping you out in the process.
Yeah, make your life easier, man. No one likes dealing with cable companies. You don't get half the channels. Sometimes there's blackouts. That's not present with Fubo. You can get whatever you want. I can watch Sunday Night Football with no sweat. I can watch or I can watch basketball on TNT anytime I want. Be sure to use Fubo, man. I'm definitely going to be using it. I hate paying for cable, so I'm going to be using that right now as we speak, if we're being honest. And I want to make sure to get on that deal, so now it's your turn to do the same.
Help out the Unhinged Sports Network. Cut your cable cord. Come into the digital age. Thanks, guys.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to NFL Unhinged. And we're just getting it set up now. We're going live on the Colorcast app as well, one of our new great partners for the Unhinged Sports Network. And we're giving you guys a sneak preview of this show and get to hear the final part of it. Basically, the part everybody, I believe, tunes in for, which is our picks going forward in this week's NFL Unhinged Pick'em. Now, we'll go ahead and mention for the people who are going to tune in on Colorcast here in a second. And if you haven't listened to any of our playoff episodes, we aren't going based off record anymore. I mean, obviously you can still keep track of your record if you want, but we're going based off a point system. So we had 1 point for divisional and wild card rounds. And then we are now up to the championship week, which will be for 5 points. And then whoever gets the Super Bowl right will get 10 points based off of that. And just real quick, the standings, once again, Zach from the Gridiron Gallery podcast is 8 out of 10, 8 points. He was in the lead last week, but he is now tied for number one with Jim, aka J-Dash of the J-Dash Morning Show, also the commissioner of the Unhinged Sports Network. DJ and Kelsey of the High Low Sports Podcast are both tied at 6 out of 10 with 6 points. And then Niko, my co-host from the far end of the bench, is sitting at the far end of the bench right now with 5 points, getting 5 out of the 6 games so far right. So there's, still plenty of time, still plenty of points to be had left for everybody. But let's go ahead and we'll start, and we can kind of go into depth since there's only 2 games. We were running out of time during the wild card weekend show, but now we have plenty of time to get all the games in. And we're going to start with the NFC Championship first because that's what's going to be played first. 1:05 Mountain Time, so 3:05 Eastern on Sunday afternoon. Tampa Bay, Tom Brady in his first NFC Championship matchup going up against Aaron Rodgers, who Niko likes to call him the bad man, basically a GOAT, bad man. But that's going to be an intriguing matchup. So, Niko, I'll start with you first. Who do you think is going to come out on top in this Tampa Bay versus Green Bay matchup?
Boy, what a matchup this is. This is the matchup we wanted for years to happen in the Super Bowl. We wanted Brady versus Rodgers. We wanted these two absolute behemoths of quarterbacks to face off in the Super Bowl, and we get it in the NFC Championship. Fire me up, baby. This is going to be a fun one. Man, this game is going to be it's going to come down to, in my opinion, the running game. I think who's going to be able to force the other team to be one-dimensional. When the Buccaneers are rolling, it's behind Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. When Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones are get going, that team wins football games. And it was the same for the Packers. When A.J. Dillon, Jamal Williams, and Aaron Jones get going, that's when they're at their best. Making Aaron Rodgers not do a whole lot, but having him still be the person he is and still ball out when they need him is going to be the fact here. I'm going to go with the Packers here because I believe that Tristan Wirfs is going to have himself a little bit of a struggle. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, They had a good game plan against Cameron Jordan because they knew Cameron Jordan was, and they were able to chip him a lot more this past week. But there's people are sleeping on Zatarius Smith and sleeping on Rashawn Gary. I think Wirfs is going to have some troubles there. I think, especially with Antonio Brown out. I mean, obviously the Buccaneers have weapons galore, so that's really not that big of a problem. But having no Antonio Brown does open things up in the slot more. Obviously, Scotty Miller is going to be a big time player. I mean, obviously any white slot receiver under Tom Brady will do that. But when it comes to what defense do I think will make more stops? I'm going to say the Packers. The Buccaneers have shown their flaws on defense. They had a hell of a game last week, though. I'll tell you that. But if it wasn't for a fumble by Jared Cook, honestly, we could be talking about the Saints here. If one small play that the Buccaneers made that cost the Saints the game, could have gone the other way. So for that reason, what the Packers showed me last week and their dominance, yes, the Rams were a lesser team than the Saints. They showed me a lot, and especially that 1-2-3 punch at running back is going to be a big problem to have. And what fun is this matchup, man? We get to see two of the most exciting tight ends in the game too. Robert Tonyan, boy, is he fun to watch. He plays with his heart on his sleeve. The dude hasn't had a drop all year. And like I said, Aaron Rodgers is having fun. He's having fun. That bad man is having fun. Who the hell is going to stop him? I mean, it's going to take a lot. The Bucs are going to have to put up points. This ain't no Drew Brees with half an arm anymore. This is the MVP Aaron Rodgers that you're having to deal with. This man can throw it on a dime without looking the other direction. This ain't no walk in the park for the Bucs. The Buccaneers defense now has to deal with a quarterback that can actually throw the ball decently and they have a damn good running game. And I'm going to say even better running game than the Saints because Kamara has been dead asleep the past 5 weeks. And the Packers offense, they do whatever they want to you. And I mean, whatever they want to you. They will throw it to Devonta Adams, run him around, make Jalen Ramsey look like an idiot and look stupid. They'll throw it to Robert Tonyan up the seam. They'll hand it off to A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, whoever they feel like. This Packers team, this is some of the best weapons Aaron Rodgers has ever had in his career. Oh, yeah, and they drafted a quarterback in the first round. Dumbasses. And Aaron Rodgers is proving the Packers organization wrong. That they don't deserve him at this point because drafting Jordan Love instead of getting Chase Claypool or Justin Jefferson in the first round last year. Imagine those two guys on this team. Oh my God, what a fucking beautiful presence that would have been. But instead, you draft Jordan Love in the first round, and everyone was saying in the preseason, this Packers team is washed, blah, blah, blah. But like we said, Aaron Rodgers is having fun. LaFleur has been calling a great game. That game, some of those play calls by the Rams last week, showed why LaFleur deserved the head coaching job. People were saying that he's too young, blah, blah, blah. They're trying to find a Sean McVay. Well, I'll tell you right now, they found one. LaFleur has been done a great job. He knows what to do. And this Packers team looked like they're primed and ready to roll. Tom Brady, he's the GOAT for a reason, but he's going to have help everywhere else. And I don't believe this Buccaneers defense is going to be able to stop Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones.
Well, I mean, I don't know who just came out through Niko. It sounded like George Washington Duke from Rocky V. I'll go ahead and give Zach's pick from the Gridiron Gallery podcast. He is going with the Green Bay Packers in this game. And it's because it's Rodgers. He's got the offense in sync, basically the same reasons that Niko said. And I'm going to call him Bobby. I'm not going to call him Robert with the flow and the attitude. He'll be Bobby Tonyan from now on, but he's definitely one of the more dynamic tight ends in this league. Let's go ahead. We'll go to Jim next. Jim, give us the blueprint as to how Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers this weekend.
Like how you beat any quarterback in the NFL, you put the quarterback on his ass. Unfortunately, Green Bay, their offensive line doesn't make mistakes. Aaron Rodgers is always on his feet. He's always making plays. And when the quarterback is on his feet and making plays, you ain't going to beat him. And the Buccaneers, for some odd reason, over the last 6 weeks, they've won 6 games, and their stats, they're almost averaging now 2.5 sacks a game on opposing defenses, and they're holding opponents down in their last 6 games almost 75 yards less than the previous 12. So their defense is flying around. That's the thing that the Buccaneers defense was notorious known for under Tony Dungy, the Tampa 2 defense, and of course Chucky Gruden. But I look at this game, and when I see on one side, I see Tom Brady, and when I see on the other side, I see Aaron Rodgers. So you're telling me that Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady have played each other multiple times in the regular season, and their histories of these two franchises. This is the very first time that we'll see Brady versus Rodgers in a playoff game. It's like back in the day, we could have seen Magic versus Bird if they actually fucked up the NBA playoffs and they met in the semifinals, so you never see them in the finals. So you're finally getting it. You're finally getting this match. But when I see on this one side, I see Brady kicking it with all the players on the offense. Yes, that's slot receiver. There's some odd reason that white slot receivers do well with Brady. Antonio Brown was, over the last couple of weeks, has been Brady's go-to guy. He's been, honestly, he's been reliable for Brady. Evans has been reliable. Evans made a great catch last week against the Saints that I think not a lot of quarterbacks can put the ball where Brady put it, where the catch was made. But when I look at this game and I see Rodgers on the other side, and at the very end of the game, there's I think LA was making some defensive adjustments, and they zoomed in on Rodgers' face, and he gave that grin, like, yeah, I know what you're going to do. Ain't going to work. And that's that grin, like, he's having fun. And when Rodgers is having fun, no one's beating Rodgers. I don't care if it's Brady. No one's beating Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers this year has been the best quarterback in the NFL throughout the whole season. Now, there's been points in the season where Russell Wilson was better and Mahomes was better, but consistently through week 1 to now, Rodgers has been the best quarterback in the NFL. And as a Brady supporter, and as a Brady homer, which I've made it known on this show multiple times, he's not going to the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, I think, have too much weapons. That running game, three-headed monster that impressed me last week against LA. And LA has a far better defense than Tampa. That Tampa 2 defense is not the Tampa defense when Derek Brooks is playing in the past. So there's no Warren Sapp coming off of that sideline helping the Bucs this week. So, yeah, give me the Packers in this one. And I think it could be a shootout, but it's more likely that the Packers are going to win by 2 to 3 scores, in my opinion. I just don't think the Buccaneers defense can handle a Aaron Rodgers that's happy and enjoying life. That's scary. So, yeah, I think the Packers will be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Wow. For the listeners on Colorcast, Jim is a diehard Patriots fan and a Tom Brady homer, like he said. So that's impressive that he doesn't think that even Tom Brady can overcome Aaron Rodgers without Danica Patrick's crystals and everything that was going on through that situation. Just real quickly mention for the listeners, you're listening to part of this week's NFL Unhinged show with myself, Jimmy Pilato, Nico Bryant, and my co-host on the far end of the bench. Jay, you just heard from Jim, aka J-Dash of the J-Dash show. And then we're going to get to DJ for the High Low Sports podcast. And he's pulling double duty this week. He's got to give his pick and then also Kelsey's pick, which makes up for the last couple of weeks when we weren't able to get DJ on the show. So DJ, go ahead, give me the High Low Sports picks for this weekend, but with the NFC Championship.
We're going to start with Kelsey's because his was quick and simple. He picked Tampa Bay over the Packers because momentum, Tom Brady, and the run game that we saw last week. And because he also picked them before the season, so at this point, you got to stick with it. For me, I look at it, and we talk about how much fun Aaron Rodgers is having, but we're overlooking he did not have a whole lot of fun the first time these guys met. Tampa's defense absolutely swarmed him. It was one of the better defenses for a chunk of the season before they got really stagnant, and Tyreek Hill in the first quarter happened when they played Kansas City. They're still the best run defense in the league by more than 10 yards. I think the second was the Colts, like 10, 15 yards below them. So the defense has still been not quite elite, but still really, really good. They have 2 linebackers who run sub 4.5. Devin White, I think, ran a 4.3, which is absolutely stupid. He's the fastest guy on the field half the time. And then when we look at the Packers, we talked about their run game last week. I don't think it's going to be effective this week because of Tampa's run defense. So I want to see Aaron Jones get involved in the passing game. I want to see them split him out like they did a little bit last year, where he had 18 touchdowns and 8 of them were receiving. I want to see them pull those linebackers out of the middle of the field so they can't just roam sideline to sideline. So they have to chase Aaron Jones, leaving more room for Devonta Adams to work, Alan Lazard in the squad, and just get the ball out quickly because that pass rush is pretty good when it gets the tee off. I'm still going to stick with the Packers because when I look at it, I think the last 6 games for Tampa Bay, they've played a lot of really bad teams. I mean, you have the Lions, a backup Washington team. Atlanta's choking away a lead. Last week they played the Saints, and we talked about Drew Brees fell apart, and it took basically 4 turnovers for it to happen. So I think the Packers are the better team. They're rolling. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to find his spots. And missing Antonio Brown doesn't really matter too much for this Bucs team because they have so many weapons. And last week, Tom Brady's leading receivers were Cameron Brate and Leonard Fournette. He's not really looking outside for Mike Evans, who I think had 2 catches. Chris Godwin had 3 or 4. Antonio Brown had 1. Scotty Miller had 1. So I don't think that'll really make too much of a difference. I don't think Tom finds them a whole lot in this game. So I'm going to take the Packers because I think they make a couple more big plays. I think it's a mini shootout because the Buccaneers' pass defense has some holes. The Packers' overall defense is just it can get got pretty easily. We even saw Jared Goff, Cam Akers have their way with it last week. I think Aaron Rodgers makes just a few more plays. Devonta Adams makes his presence known. I'm going to stick with the Packers going to the Super Bowl as well, but I think it wouldn't be too surprising if Tampa Bay pulled it off just because they have more arrows in their favor. The difference is one of the big arrows in Green Bay's favor is that bad man Aaron Rodgers, and that's a really big arrow. And Devonta Adams as well, too. No one on Tampa Bay is covering him one-on-one. If they treat him like they did Tyreek Hill, he's going to go ballistic.
Yeah, the bad man has a big weight on his shoulders. I will say that we're kind of forgetting the part of the season where Tampa Bay's defense was the strength of their team. I mean, Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh in the middle, they're still a good presence up front. And last week, I was seeing different ways. I mean, obviously, Niko and I were broadcasting it for Colorcast, but they were able to find holes in that zone defense that the Packers like to run. Yes, Jair Alexander shuts down one side of the field, but their zone defense in the middle, their safeties, they do kind of get lost in places, and nobody's going to take advantage of bad zone coverage more than Tom Brady. So there is a little bit of worry there. I don't make picks for this show, but I'll just go ahead and say it. The Packers were my NFC champion, so it's a clean sweep except for Kelsey. Kelsey's on his island once again with Tampa Bay. He hasn't done too well with his island picks in the playoffs. But now let's go ahead and get to the AFC Championship, the later game on CBS. We're going to get Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. However you feel about that, I'll try to say it as neutral as possible. Yay, Tony Romo. But we got that matchup coming up for the AFC Championship, and it looks like Patrick Mahomes is going to play. He's cleared concussion protocol. Jim, I'm going to start with you. Bills, Chiefs. Who do you got? Is it 5 points on the line for this matchup as well?
Bills and Chiefs in Kansas City. Weather is questionable, like every playoff game in Kansas City. Is Patrick Mahomes 100% healthy? I think there's something bullshitting happening right now. The guy looked like when he got hit in the throat, looked like the guy was dazed and confused and didn't know where he was at. And, 7-day concussion protocol. Hey, if you're, a 4th-string wide receiver, you got to follow that 7-day concussion protocol. You're Patrick Mahomes? Nah, you're good. 4 days, you're good. You're going to be cleared. But when you look at this game, it's going to be the offense of explosion of Tyreek Hill, Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes, Sammy Watkins against the Buffalo's defense. And that is going to be the determining factor. Now, the key positions to watch is the Buffalo Bills' front 4 against the offensive line against Kansas City. If they can get pressure on Mahomes, get him flustered and running out of the pocket and hit him, that'll be a benefit of the doubt. That'll help Buffalo get momentum. There's going to be a bigger crowd in Kansas City this week than previous games. They got permission from the state government to add an additional 6,000 fans in Arrowhead. So there'll be about 24-some thousand fans in the stands. So Arrowhead's always loud, but it's not 75,000, screaming idiots, but it's a loud stadium. I look at this game and I want to see, it comes down to the line of scrimmage. Can Buffalo get Josh Allen to hit plays make smart plays. And now, last week against Baltimore, Josh Allen was throwing slant routes, and you had no idea where the ball was going because you got 30-mile-an-hour gust winds that were just controlling the game. But if you want to see Stephon Diggs catch on, and if Josh Allen's on fire, Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills have the offense, they have the defense, they have the team to beat Kansas City. I'm right now, if the game was being played today, I will say that the Kansas City Chiefs will be advancing to the Super Bowl. But this game is being played tomorrow, and I still think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be in the Super Bowl. But there's something about Buffalo and this time, and that for some odd reason, I'm one of those evil predictors. I have this dark feeling that the Super Bowl will be Tampa Bay versus Buffalo for some odd reason, and it's going to be one of those classic revenge games for Brady winning the Super Bowl to piss off Buffalo again. I have a dark feeling with that, but for some odd reason, Patrick Mahomes over the last couple of years has been the guy who's pulled off miracle plays. The offense of Kansas City is good, but if Chad or Hitty doesn't matter plays, they're screwed. But this game is going to be what Vegas says was Kansas City by 5. That was the Vegas odds they said. So take the under, but I take Kansas City. I think it's going to be a field goal game. I think Buffalo comes to play, and it's going to come down to the very end.
The line has shifted. I'm looking on ESPN now. It is Kansas City by 3, and the over-under is 54.5. But I think that life's too short to bet the under.
That's too. I won't bet the under on that, but 3.5. Ooh, yeah. I got to take Kansas City straight up. Then I think it's going to be a field goal game. I think that's going to be an AFC Championship game. It's going to be very entertaining.
No, I think that it's one of the better matchups, and it's cool on the AFC side. I mentioned it last week. Baker Mayfield going into the divisional round was the oldest quarterback left on the AFC side at like 25 years old and 200-something days. I'll tell you one extra company besides the NFL that would be pretty upset if it was the Bills versus Buccaneers is that it would be State Farm, because right now they'd get both their spokespeople into the Super Bowl, and you know that they want that, especially for all the commercials. But DJ, we'll go to the high-low sports guys next. What do you guys see happening in the AFC Championship?
I'll start with Kelsey's picks. He's got the Chiefs over the Bills. He thinks Patty will have a little something to prove after the injury, plus all those weapons, Tyreek, Kelsey, plus you got Sammy Watkins coming back. He thinks this will be a little bit too much. So he has his preseason Super Bowl pick actually playing out with the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. So the rest of his picks had some questions, but he was pretty spot on in the preseason with those two so far. So that's what he has. For me, I'm looking at the game, and I kind of looked a little bit back at the first time they matched up when Kansas City ran all over them. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had like $160 or something absolutely ridiculous. But in the second half of that game, Josh Allen started to catch on a little bit. That was still reckless Josh, too, who was, screw it, he down there somewhere, slinging it 50, 40, 30 yards down the field. Every play, there was a check down the Chiefs left wide open that Josh Allen refused to throw because that was early Josh Allen. Recently, the last 6-7 weeks when they've been rolling, he'll hit that check down and let them run after the catch. He kind of figured out their defense, the single high safety, and then the several blitzing off the edges where crossing the field, they could get their guys open. He just needs to take the underneath routes. Then when I look at Kansas City too, they're 14-2 on the season, and one of those losses nobody played. But a lot of those games were really close, and they didn't look their best. Against the Browns, they didn't look that great. They were ahead early on. Patty was able to put the ball down the field, but if it wasn't for Dan Sorensen's super helmet force fumble targeting call, it's probably a lot closer to before he gets hurt, and the Browns are probably winning that game. And the Bills defense, that's kind of the biggest change from that week too when they first played. The Bills defense has stepped up big the last handful of weeks, getting Matt Milano back at linebacker. Their scoring defense has gone up from 29-30 to second or third with him in the lineup. Just having him there is a huge jump. Tre'Davious White, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Taron Johnson. They have a secondary that can match up with Kansas City, and not speed-wise, but as far as technique and skill-wise, you have two safeties that could play over the top. And Josh Allen, it's been his world these last 7 weeks. No team is hotter than the Bills. They have no running game, but I'm still going to go with the Bills. I think it's a shootout. I think Stephon Diggs, even last week when they couldn't throw the ball, Stephon Diggs had 8 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. John Brown, coming back from the injury, 8 catches, 60 yards. We haven't seen much of Cole Beasley, who had 95 catches this year, too. He's still getting in the groove. So I think it's going to be a mini shootout. I think the Bills are going to control the ball while throwing it, as weird as that sounds. They're going to throw it 40 times, but they're going to be a lot of quick slants, bubble screens, whip routes, and they're going to find a way to control the clock through the air. Josh Allen makes just a few plays, And I think Kansas City, they get a little burnt out. They've been on top of the world for the last 3 years straight, basically. I think they're going to get a little burnt out. Patty coming off the injury scare. Give me the Bills by a really close margin. I'd probably say maybe a 4-point game or something like that. Because if it's 3 points, Patty will come back and take the lead. But somehow they have a 4-point lead and the Kansas City Chiefs run out of time. So I'm going to say the Bills not only get over the hump, they completely soar over and they find themselves in the Super Bowl. And us getting Patrick Mahomes versus Aaron Rodgers in the Super Bowl will be way too good to be true. Life is unfair and it's 2021. So I already put Aaron Rodgers in there, so I can't let Patty get in there at this point. So give me the Bills, and this gives me a chance to, make up some ground in the standings too.
I don't hate it. I think the Bills are one of those scary teams. I'll tell you another person who's going with Buffalo, Zach Kyleman of the Gridiron Gallery podcast, also put his pick in for Buffalo, saying that the defense has been tested against pretty good offenses the last 2 weeks. And they were able to knock out one of the young dynamic stars in Lamar Jackson and Milano, is, I can't remember the last name. Milano. He's the X factor of that defense. He's what's made them into what they are right now. And then obviously they have 4 safeties that could all be starting anywhere else in the league. They just have a wealth of talent there. So Buffalo is a good team, but Niko, you're the last pick of championship weekend. Let us have it. What do you got?
Man, I picked the Chiefs in our pick'em, Jimmy, with the Super Bowl matchup, and the last couple of weeks I've been trying to pick with my head instead of my heart, and my heart is telling me nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, and I mean nobody can circle the wagons like Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen has these dudes playing hard. I'm not picking the Chiefs because the Bronco in me does not want the Chiefs in the Super Bowl again. The X factor of this game will be Matt Milano, like DJ said, and then also Tremaine Edmonds. Will those 2 guys be able to slow down Travis Kelce? If they do, I believe Buffalo wins this game. I think Tyreek Hill, you can put your Davius White on Tyreek Hill and be just fine. And then Patrick Mahomes has to start feeding McCole Hardman, Sammy Watkins, all these other guys who've been very inconsistent, which, I mean, Patrick Mahomes has shown to do. But a banged up Patrick Mahomes having to go go away from using Travis Kelce and go away from using Tyreek Hill is a problem, in my opinion. I think another X factor in this game, a person people are sleeping on, everyone says Buffalo's running game is not good, but I think that the Buffalo Bills may see a little bit of a running game. I think Devin Singletary will get a little bit going, and Zach Moss, yes, he's out for the season with the IR, but another running back they have that people don't talk about, TJ Yeldon. Yeah, that Alabama running back. He is great in the passing game. I think we see a lot out of him this week. Especially, I think the Bills saw what the Browns did, and I think they're going to try to use the running game a little bit more than the Ravens game, because obviously the Ravens secondary wasn't the greatest, and they were better up front. So that's why they abused the passing game against them. But the Bills, I think, I'm really excited to see Josh Allen. I would love to see a Josh Allen versus Aaron Rodgers Super Bowl. Like I said, no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. I think the Bills have an edge to them where they're like, I don't care. And that's the best way at this point for Buffalo. They're like, I don't care. No one expects this from us. We are the underdogs basically in every game. We're going up against the Super Bowl champs. I think it's very, in my opinion, unless your name's Tom Brady, I think it's very, very hard to go to back-to-back Super Bowls. It's very difficult to do that. I think the Bills are able to pull off the upset here in Arrowhead Stadium. Give me the Buffalo Bills. No one circles a wagon like the Buffalo Bills.
There you go. I mean, it's all over the place for picks. I will just throw this out there. The AFC Championship last year came down to Patrick Mahomes making a play with his feet. And with the concussion last week, with his foot already being kind of injured, not sure if we'll be able to see that same level of play. I mean, obviously, he'll probably be shot up on something so he doesn't feel pain for the entire game. It looked like Aaron Rodgers did a couple years ago when he got a shot at halftime, and then his post-game interview just had saucers in his eyes. But it is an intriguing matchup. The Bills are one of those teams that just the scariest type of players and the scariest type of teams to play are the ones that don't know that they're supposed to suck. Taylor Heineke doesn't know that he's not supposed to be any good, and look what he did. Took one of the greatest quarterbacks all the way down to the wire. So there's a lot of intriguing things about this game coming up. I'm glad that these are the two matchups in the championship games, because we're going to get whoever comes out of these two matchups, we're getting the two best teams in the NFL to play. There's a lot of great talent all across the league this year, but I do think that these four teams, whoever makes it out of them, will be a very entertaining Super Bowl. And I'm glad that we've been able to cover this season, both on this show, all of our podcasts on the UnHinged Sports Network. With that, thank you guys for tuning into this portion of the Colorcast. If you want to listen to the full show, this will be live on the network, unhingedsn.airtime.pro, 10 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, and then it'll be live, available on demand on the Far End of the Bench YouTube channel. Just search Far End of the Bench, and it'll be available there at 11:15 Eastern. But thank you guys for tuning in on Colorcast. And now I will go ahead and give everybody a chance to plug their stuff and where they can find you guys throughout the rest of the network. So Jim, I'll start with you. Where can they follow the network, and where can they find you and Carlos on your show?
You can find us at J-Show. You can find Carlos at the Wrestling Majid. You can find the show, J-Show, for Monday and Fridays at 3 p.m. We talk about sports, entertainment, weird stuff, and we like to argue about movies time and again. So J-Show, and we get some big things planned for 2021. You can find us on any podcast platform out there. It's called the J-Show, and also unhingedsn.com.
There you go. Lots of content coming your way. We're adding a new show into the rotation on Monday, so be on the lookout for that. And there's a lot of big things in the works behind the scenes. But DJ, where can they find you and Kelsey with your show on the network and then on social media as well?
So for the High Low Sports Podcast, Kelsey and I basically like to summarize our show as rants, recaps, and rankings, because that's pretty much what a lot of our stuff is, the triple R's. Our episodes premiere every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, with several repeats after that. They'll also be uploaded to our Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the entire thing 24 hours after the air. We also have a YouTube page we are working on, and a High Low Sports Podcast website, highlowsportspodcast.com. Everything you need to know there, sponsors, collabs, the whole 9 yards. So check us out there. You'll find our link tree and everything you need to know there as well.
Everybody's making moves on the network. Everybody's chasing the podcast of the year. Niko, where can they find Far End of the Bench, the 2020 Unhinged podcast of the year?
Of course, Jimmy and myself, we're the Far End of the Bench podcast located out of Denver, Colorado. 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time on Wednesdays, you can hear us. And then obviously, 1 o'clock Eastern, that's the time slot for everyone else out there. When it comes to all of our platforms, we're on Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. Just search Far End of the Bench. We're right there. We release our episodes directly after. We're on YouTube as well, Far End of the Bench podcast. So if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Hit it. It literally is one click. I promise, just one click. If you're watching this, just one click. Hit that button. Hit the subscribe button. Help us out there. We're trying to grow more and more. We got a lot of fun things planned. I'm going to tell you right now, Super Bowl week, y'all better watch out, because we got something big planned for Super Bowl week at the Far End of the Bench. Y'all are going to not want to miss that. So a lot of good stuff coming out. Basketball season underway. Hockey season underway. We talk about all that good stuff there. We have a lot of great stuff in plan. We're going to be color casting a few games here in the near future. Probably not any more NFL games the rest of the season, but a lot of hockey games and basketball games on the slate too. So be sure to go check us out all on there, because Jimmy and I love putting content out and love feeding to the fans. And we have a lot of fun things in store, I promise.
At FEOTB Pod to follow us on all our social medias, and then we have link trees in our bios as well. You can catch Zach Kyleman both on Beyond the Press Box and the Gridiron Gallery show. Beyond the Press Box is the 11 a.m. Eastern slot right before Far End of the Bench on Wednesdays for the Unhinged Sports Network for their premiere. They're on all other platforms as well. And then for Zach's show, the Gridiron Gallery, Jim, you're going to have to help me out with the time, but he's Fridays at – Jim's on mute again. Fridays, you can go follow him at ZK Podcast, and I'm sure he has his times up there. Jim.
Friday at 11. Sorry, my bad.
There you go. That's where you can find Gridiron Gallery. Zach, I know, has got a lot of stuff coming up, and even though the NFL season's coming to an end, he's a big football guy, all kinds of football guys. So he'll be covering the spring league when they come back. I know he's counting down the days till XFL comes back, but that's where you can find everybody for this show. So with that, this has been NFL Unhinged, the championship round for myself, Jimmy Pilato, Niko Bryant of the Far End of the Bench, DJ and Kelsey for the High Low Sports Podcast, and Jim, a.k.a. J-Dash, for the J Morning Show and the Unhinged Sports Network. Thank you guys very much for listening, and we will see you guys for Pro Bowl week, and then we got Super Bowl coming up right after that. So don't go anywhere. Plenty more good stuff coming from NFL Unhinged.
Woo! That's right. Here we go. You know what they said when we came to the Unhinged Sports Network? You know what they said? They said there was a lot of talking going on over here on the West Coast, over here in Denver in the Rocky Mountains. The Italian Stallion Jimmy Pilato here, one half of the Far End of the Bench podcast, the podcast of the year on the Unhinged Sports Network. And you know what? We had to go the hard way to let you guys know we are the kiss stealing, woo, wheeling, dealing, woo, limousine riding, jet flying, smooth talking, son of a gun. And I'm having a hard time holding these alligators down. Woo! Far End of the Bench.